Boto, okay na rin. Akin, okay na rin.
Session is now called to order. Everybody is requested to rise for the invocation to be delivered by the Honorable Sols Aragones, 3rd District, Laguna.
Dear Heavenly Father, Creator of all good things, Savior of mankind, and Author of the world, we humbly pray before you in this time of uncertainty, a time of vulnerability, weakness, and sorrow. We seek your guidance as the world is continuously plagued by the global pandemic. May you bestow our leaders with wisdom to be able to decide the best course of action for the country. Please protect your people, especially the most vulnerable members of society, the children, the elderly, and the sickly, that they may be granted courage to overcome the challenges brought by the pandemic. May you grant fortitude to those who are suffering, those who have lost their livelihoods, businesses, and loved ones, that they may recover and be showered with your grace. We pray that our land be healed and restored in the sanctuary that you have blessed us with. We ask all of this in the name of the Father. Amen.
Please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyang ka ng magiging, sa manlulupi, di ka pasisilil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo baghang, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nakikinig. Ang bituin ng araw niya, kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walang pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya dapat may mamapit at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we call the roll of members. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Secretary General is requested to call the roll of members.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives, Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Omentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Baskub, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Bilyones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Kanama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredinil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Mariala Arni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizaldi, Ko Juanco, Coliantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, Deloso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marinho, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Uwaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor. U. Zamora Ronaldo. Zamora Waikurat. Zarate Zubiri. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows that 300 members responded to the call.
300 members present. The chair declares a quorum.
Approval of the journal.
Majority Leader.
Approval of the journal.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we approve Journal number 17 dated March 8, 9, and 10, 2021. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, today being a Monday, I move that we open the privilege hour.
Reference?
So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, a moment of suspension, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended.
Reference.
Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for a reference of business. Could the Secretary General be directed to read the title of bills and resolutions on first reading, as well as communications and committee reports? So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Second, we're directed to read House bills on first reading and communications.
Reference of business bills on first reading. House Bill 8978, establishing the Unified COVID-19 Contact Tracing System. Representative Gatchalian.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill 8979, earmarking a portion of the motor vehicle users charge for the establishment, operation, and maintenance of vehicles inspection centers in the country. Representative Gatchalian.
The Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 8980, integrating basic medical and health training and risk reduction, national emergency or disaster awareness, preparedness, and response in the curriculum of schools and institutions of learning. Representative De Los Santos.
The Committee on Basic Education and Culture and Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill 8981, mandating all public and private primary and secondary schools to include media and information education, including the responsible use of the internet in their curriculum. Representative De Los Santos.
The Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 8982, amending the SK Reform Act of 2015. Representative De Los Santos.
The Committee on Local Government.
Resolutions. House Resolution 1638, supporting the immediate ratification of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Representatives Gatchalian, Tiangco, and Hofer.
The Committee on Economic Affairs.
House Resolution 1639, strongly urging the Committee on Human Rights to condemn and investigate the brutal stabbing of National Union of People's Lawyers Panay Secretary General and Angelo Carlo Guillen in Iloilo City. Representatives Zarate, Lagman, Del Monte, Colyamat, Caite, Brosas, Castro France, and Ilago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1640, urging the Committee on Human Rights to investigate the planting of evidence and illegal arrest of San Pablo City Water District Employees Association President and right activist Ramir Corcolan. Representatives Gaite, Zarate, Colyamat, Castro France, Brosas, and Ilago.
The Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1641, directing the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulations and the Committee on Local Government to investigate the imminent mass layoff of government employees due to the proposed full devolution of functions of the executive branch to the local government. Representatives Gaite, Zarate, Colyamat, Castro France, Brosas, and Ilago.
The Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1642, directing the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization to inquire on the joint venture agreements entered into by local water districts and private entities. Representative Marcoleta.
The Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1643, commending all dioceses of the Philippine Church in the celebration of the 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines and acknowledging their immense contribution to governance and nation building. Representative Violago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1644 urging the Committee on Human Rights to condemn and investigate the killing of 9 and arrest of 6 activists in simultaneous police operations in Southern Tagalog. Representatives Gaites, Zarate, Lagman, Belmonte, Culyamat, Brosas, Castro Franz, and Ilago.
The Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1645 urging the DOJ and the NBI to investigate into the killings and arrests of activists in Calabarzon region last March 7, 2021. Representative Castelo.
To the Committee on Rules.
Communication, letters and email from certain municipal mayors and city mayors submitting the reports of fund utilization and status of programs, project activities implementation relative to Bayanihan grant to cities, municipalities, and provinces.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated January 29, 2021, of the Commissioner, Vice Chairman, and Executive Officer, NPC, furnishing the House with a copy of their fiscal year 2020 highlights of accomplishments.
To the Committee on Public Order and Safety.
Letters dated January 29, February 11, of OIC Regional Office Number 4A, COA, furnishing the House with copies of their annual audit reports on the Kabuya Water District.
The Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated February 8, 2021 of DTI Secretary Chairperson Export Development Council submitting to House a copy of EDC Consolidated Third and Fourth Quarter Report for 2020.
The Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated 10 February 2021 of the Chief Administrative Officer, Dito Telecommunity Corporation, formerly Mindanao Islamic Telephone Company, submitting to the House a copy of their annual report to Congress for the period 1 January 2020 to 31 December 2020.
To the Committee on Legislative Franchises.
Letter dated February 15 of the DILG OIC Undersecretary notifying the House that the Department's Fiscal Year 2020 Performance Challenge Fund Fourth Quarter Progress Report and the Fiscal Year 2020 PCF Annual Accomplishment Report were uploaded at the DILG website.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Memorandum dated 15 February 2020 of the OPAP Secretary informing the House of the OPAP's financial accountability reports for the month of January 21 have been submitted to the Unified Reporting System and have been posted on the OPAP's official website.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letters dated 5 and March 2021 of the BSP Deputy Director Office of the General Counsel Legal Services, transmitting to the House duly certified copies of certain BSP issuances.
The Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
2019 Annual Audit Report of the Zamboanga State College of Marine Science and Technology.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Committee reports. Report numbers 841 and 842 of the Committee on Tourism on House Bill 8968 and 8969. Report numbers 843 to 850 of the Committee on Legislative Franchises on House Bill 8970 to 8977. Report numbers 851 and 852 of the Committee on Science and Technology on House Resolution 1646 and 1647. Report number 853 of the Committees on Higher and Technical Education Appropriations on House Bill 8985. Report number 854 of the Committee on Cooperative Development on House Resolution 1648. Report numbers 855 and 859 of the Committee on Basic Education and Culture on House Resolution 1649 and House Bill 8320. Report number 856 of the Committee on Transportation on House Bill 8986. Report number 857 and 858 of the Committee on Tourism and Appropriations on House Bill number 8987 and 8988. Report number 860 of the Committee on Disaster Resilience and Appropriations on House Bill 8990. Report numbers 861 and 862 of the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries on House Bill numbers 8991 and 8992.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the privilege hour, today being a Monday, So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the first of our colleagues to avail of the privilege is our Honorable Deputy Speaker from the party list Sagip. I move to recognize the Honorable Rodante Marcoleta. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Deputy Speaker Rodanto Marcoleta of Party List Sagip is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker. Maraming salamat, Mr. Majority Leader. Mr. Speaker, it was General George Patton, American military hero, who said something about planning. He said, "One does not plan and then try to make circumstances fit those plans. One tries to make plans fit the circumstances." But the worst kind, Mr. Speaker, is when one pretends to have a plan when there is none and does nothing, not even in trying to make the circumstances fit the semblance of any plan. This, Mr. Speaker, is how the sad state of the Department of Education may be described today. In the last budget hearing several months ago, this representation asked DepEd how many self-learning modules, or SLMs, did they actually print for the 22 million learners from K to 12. They did not have a ready answer. Mr. Speaker, when asked how many modules were produced in the regions, the provinces, and the districts, DepEd could not find a credible answer. When asked as to how many modules were printed per competency, after reducing more than 14,000 sets of competencies to only 5,689 most essential learning competencies, the more they could not volunteer a definite answer. This is so because the teachers were the ones tasked to do the job instead, which is why, and for the most part, they practically begged for supplies, printers, and other IT equipment because the fund downloaded to the respective areas proved insufficient. After grappling with their tentative estimates, DepEd came out with an arbitrary number, 1.2 billion modules. Mr. Speaker, even if we believe this number to be true, by assuming 30 pages per module, they will need 36 billion sheets of bond paper to print this. With a conservative estimate of 50 cents copying cost per page alone, DepEd needed 18 billion pesos to produce these materials, way beyond their 10 billion budget for 2020, covering 2 quarters. The reason of DepEd, Mr. Speaker, in shifting to self-learning modules is because some 2 years ago, I have already pointed out to them that per the mandate of Republic Act 8047, a law enacted 26 years ago, DepEd should no longer be producing or procuring books for the elementary and secondary education. This law categorically mandated that within a period of not more than 3 years from the effectivity of that law, the DECs, now DepEd, shall phase out its elementary and secondary textbook publication and distribution functions and shall support the phasing in of private sector publishers to assume this function. That was the mandate, Mr. Speaker. The law also mandated the creation of a National Book Development Board to oversee the transition and ultimate fruition of this program. I will not belabor this point, Mr. Speaker, because this textbook issue has been referred to the Committee of Good Government and Public Accountability for inquiry. Suffice it to say that DepEd tried again to circumvent the law by printing the SLMs or modules because they believe that technically speaking, a 30-page module is not a textbook per UNESCO definition. Mr. Speaker, even department orders and memoranda are issued in haphazard and whimsical fashion. The cases in point are 2 of the more recent DepEd orders, number 12 series of 2021 and number 30 series of 2020, which pertain to amendments of school calendar and calendar of activities. Mr. Speaker, DepEd must carefully, meticulously, and logically spell out said orders in order that teachers could carry out such directives efficiently. But if orders from the DepEd are unclear and lacking in sufficient detail, the teachers will be left to fend for themselves. For instance, Mr. Speaker, DepEd Order Number 12 Series of 2021 ordered that on March 1 to 12, 2021, schools shall conduct intervention and remediation activities based on the unique needs of learners. Although it is recognized that such intervention and remediation is a vital part of the learning process, especially in such extraordinary times, details of how such intervention and remediation shall be carried out by the teachers is basic. How will these intervention and remediation activities be implemented? How many students are in need of remediation? How about those students who do not need remediation intervention? What will they be doing between March 1 and 12, 2021? What materials will the teachers use? How can we ensure that remediation and interventions is enough for the learners to proceed with the competencies for the succeeding quarters? Because of the intervention and remediation activities, the third quarter shall be adjusted from March 22 to May 15, 2021 instead of February 15 to April 10, 2021, as originally ordered in DepEd Order Number 30. What was being implemented between February 15 to 26, 2021? Was there an extension of the second quarter? What was the reason why the second quarter did not start on February 15? While it is logical to adjust the school calendar given the situation, it is important to go beyond the changes in dates and look into the more important matter of what happened, what is happening, or what will happen on dates stated in the school calendar. Mr. Speaker, magsisimula na naman po ang third quarter on March 22. Today is March 15. They have 1 week to prepare, Mr. Speaker. Pero hanggang sa ngayon po, pag tinanong natin sila, ilang modules ang nai-prepare na? Kagaya po nung dating tinanong ko, ganito na naman po ang simula. Wala pong kaplano-plano, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine even if we admit or if we can grant them that they can produce 1.2 billion modules for the third quarters? Kakasya po ba yung 1 week, Mr. Speaker? Ganito po kadugo ang DepEd ngayon. Mr. Speaker, DepEd Order number 12 supplanted the detailed activities in paragraph 3 of Order number 30 with intervention and remediation activities, professional development of teachers, and the adjusted schedule of the third and fourth quarters. These amended paragraphs in DepEd Order number 30 gave rise to even more crucial questions that need to be answered. For example, did the mentioned activities recognized for their importance take place at all? Talaga po bang nangyari lahat yung kanilang mga inilatag na mga aktibidad na yon? Wala naman pong mga report. Did the amendment effectively discontinue these activities, and if so, why? Mr. Speaker, even in the disposition of more than 200 passenger vans procured by DepEd last year, the Office of the Undersecretary for Administration issued 2 successive memoranda that made it mandatory for regional directors, school division superintendent, regional and division supply officers, and drivers to attend a ceremonial turnover of passenger vans. Both memoranda, Mr. Speaker, reminded all concerned recipients to be present in the said event because, I quote, those who are absent or fail to claim the vans during the turnover will forfeit their service vehicle. Mr. Speaker, napakalaki po ng kapritsyong ito. Ibibigay lang po yung service vehicle sa mga recipients. Kailangang ipatawag ng USEC na yon ang regional director. Kailangan nandun yung schools division superintendent. Dapat nandun yung regional supply officer, pati yung division supply officer. Hindi ba po pwedeng yung driver na lang ang kumuha, armed with the authorization by either the division superintendent or the regional director? Pandemic po, papupuntahin niya yung mga tao, lalong-lalo na po kung napakil ng batch ng maraming vans na kukuha. Ang sinabi pa sa memorandum, o kayo nang bahalang gumastos sa titirhan ninyo at pagkain ninyo, i-reimburse na lang sa pamamagitan ng mga standard procedures. Mr. Speaker, pati ba itong mga ganito, kailangang mag-attend ng ceremonial turnover para lamang makuha yung vehicle? Kapag hindi ka naka-attend, bakit po ipo-forfeit yung passenger vehicle? Ito po ang kapritsyo, Mr. Speaker. People are also asking, Mr. Speaker, why DepEd bought 1.2 billion worth of science equipment for grades 1 and 2 when there is no science subject for such grade levels in public schools? What is the explanation for DepEd why the Filipino subject is taught in grade 1 starting with the second quarter only? Or why the English subject is taught to them from the third quarter only? Wala pong paliwanag yan, Mr. Speaker. Let me now go to the DepEd's computerization program, Mr. Speaker. Ang tawag po nila rito ay DCP, DepEd's computerization program. Based on the COA 2017 audit report, the DepEd computerization program revealed implementation gap showing 99% physical target deficiency for calendar years 2015 to 2017. This means that during this period, at least 77,704 schools were still waiting for their ICT packages, including the 17,000 identified schools with undelivered packages out of the more than 2 billion pesos worth from the calendar year 2015 budget transferred to the DBM procurement service in the calendar year 2016. The audit, Mr. Speaker, also showed that these gaps and deficiencies in the deliveries and utilization of ICT packages, including defective, incomplete, uninstalled, delivered packages, poor after-sale service by suppliers, and weak financial reporting not only deferred the timely provision of necessary learning interventions to intended users of DCP packages, but also weakened control in proper safeguarding of public funds and property. Mr. Speaker, narito po yung mga supplier do sa 10 billion DCP program ng DepEd for fiscal year 2015-2017. Red Dot Imaging Philippines with joint venture with Sensient K-Star Science Technology, the contract price is 3.99 billion pesos. Number 2, Columbia Technologies Incorporated, contract price 2.69 billion pesos. Girltechie Inc., joint venture with Jensen Hasi Computer Company Ltd, contract price 2.58 billion pesos. All Card Plastic Philippines, joint venture with Silicon Valley Computer Group, contract price 738.7 million pesos. Mr. Speaker, this slow-paced implementation of the DCP due to delays in the procurement process and failure of suppliers to completely deliver the computer packages to 39,950 targeted recipient schools from fiscal years 2015 up to 2018, including lapses in the deliveries and utilization of different ICT packages in NCR, regional offices of Region 3, Region 4A, and Region 13, hindered the attainment of the program objectives of enhancing the teaching learning process and the ICT literacy of learners and educator beneficiaries. In addition, Mr. Speaker, a discrepancy was also noted in the physical target for fiscal 2017 DCB fund, K-12, and the actual target recipients in the awarded contracts. As per physical accomplishment report, target recipients for K-12 was 44,447, but the total number of recipients for the awarded contract with respect to same budget was only 30,985. Based on the 2018 COA report, Mr. Speaker, DepEd's DCP implementation for fiscal year 2018 was delayed by a year, affecting, among others, the attainment of the project's objectives of providing the required ICT packages and e-textbooks to recipient senior high school learners nationwide. The 2018 audit also summarized the deficiencies in the deliveries and utilization of ICT packages in different regional offices, district offices as follows. A, incomplete or absence of documents for the recognition in the books of accounts and transfer of accountability of delivered ICT equipment in the recipient district offices and implementing units. B, partial or non-utilization of ICT packages due to non-readiness of recipient schools. C, defective ICT packages and poor quality after-sales assistance from suppliers. D, other negative observations include incomplete deliveries, non-delivery on installation of computer parts. Some equipment were declared non-functional or destroyed, and some were kept in unsafe rooms, causing further deterioration. Some packages were not installed in e-classroom or multimedia rooms as required. Mr. Speaker, as regards science and mathematics equipment, the implementation of this program, which is aimed to improve the basic education in science and mathematics through the provision of equipment for subjects compliant with K-12 curriculum, revealed deficiencies that could adversely affect its implementation. These are A, undelivered 121 science, mathematics equipments or kits in various schools, depriving the students and teachers of the needed SME units to support their learning and teaching capacity for improvement. B, some items delivered remain unutilized due to excessive quantities allocated and delivered to the school as compared to the population of senior high schools. Lack of knowledge and proper training of the teachers to use the equipment and lack of storage laboratory rooms to safekeep the items. Finally, in the 2019 COA audit, per DepEd Physical Accomplishment Report, Mr. Speaker, only 8,523 out of the 14,342 targeted schools were provided with ICT packages under the DCP funded by GAAS for fiscal years 2015 to 2019, or a miserable 59.43% accomplishment rate. It was also observed, or these lapses, Mr. Speaker, in the procurement of DCP for fiscal 2019 again hindered the full attainment of the program's objectives of enhancing the teaching learning process, including the ICT literacy of teachers and learners. Aside from software-related issues, Mr. Speaker, the delay on the part of the DepEd to provide the supplies or the suppliers with documents such as list of recipient schools and addresses, IAR template, training checklist, and property transfer report template had impeded the timely implementation of the project. It was thus evident, Mr. Speaker, that DepEd failed to efficiently plan and execute the implementation of the DepEd computerization program for fiscal year 2018 and contributed to the significant delays in delivering the ICT packages to the recipient schools. Again, on science and mathematics equipment, Mr. Speaker, the provisions of the science and mathematics equipment intended for public schools were not fully achieved when the program registered a low budget and disbursement utilization rate. Such constraints, Mr. Speaker, affected again the realization of the timely distribution of much-needed items designed to advance the learning capacity in science and mathematics subjects nationwide. But if the track record of these ICT suppliers, Mr. Speaker, were far from being ideal, why was Girl Techie I Inc. awarded 2 DCP contract again on December 16, 2019 worth 1.19 billion? And why was Columbia Technologies INC again awarded 3 DCP contracts on the same date worth 1.79 billion? Or why was Silicon Valley Computer Group Philippines got another contract on the same date worth 501.3 million? Mr. Speaker, may paborito ba ang DepEd kung pag-uusapan ay yung mga suppliers ng computers and ICT equipment? Hindi ba maliwanag dito sa report ng COA from 2017, 2018, and 2019, hindi naman sila nakapag-deliver, sablay ang delivery, sablay ang equipment quality, sablay ang installation. Bakit po pinayagan pa? Imbes na i-disqualify po ang mga suppliers na to, ay binigyan pa ng pagkakataon na makakuha ng panibagong kontrata. At hindi po maliit na pera ang pinag-uusapan. Billion po ito, Mr. Speaker. But now it can be told, Mr. Speaker, sa lahat ng mga binabanggit natin ito, bakit yung 2018 survey ng Program for International Student Assessment o PISA, the Philippines rank last in reading among the 79 countries and rank 78 both in science and mathematics. Some 600,000 students completed the assessment, representing 32 million 15-year-olds in schools of 79 participating countries and economies. In the Philippines, 7,237 students in 187 schools completed the assessment. Bakit po kulelat tayo? In the Southeast Asia Primary Learning Metrics or SEA-PLM, a survey conducted in 2019, the percentage of grade 5 students performing at or above minimum proficiency by end of primary school showed that the Philippines ranked 5th among the 6 ASEAN countries, getting only 10% in reading, while Vietnam topped it at 82%, seconded by Malaysia at 58%. In mathematics, the Philippines landed 4th at 17%, while Vietnam was first at 92% and Malaysia second at 64%. In science, the Philippines was third at 2%, while Vietnam again topped it at 32%, seconded by Malaysia at 11%. And finally, in the 2019 Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, or TIMMS, the Filipino students, Mr. Speaker, lag behind other countries in the International Assessment for Mathematics and Science for grade 4. The Philippines scored significantly lower in both subjects than any other participating countries, scoring the lowest among all 58 countries. Singapore topped both assessment in grade 4 mathematics and science, including highest scoring grade 8 for both subjects. Ito po ang masakit, Mr. Speaker. In a statement on December 10, 2020, ito po ang sinabi ng DepEd. We welcome the 2019 TIMMS result and that we value the immense data it can offer on literacy of students on math and science. What does that exactly mean, Mr. Speaker? Kung sinasabi ng DepEd that it welcomes and it values the data offered by this survey, ganun-ganun na lamang ba, Mr. Speaker? Before the betrayal of Jesus, Mr. Speaker, Simon Peter asked him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus replied, where I am going you cannot follow now, but you will follow later. Mr. Speaker, if we may ask, DepEd, where are you going? I hope they could answer this question with certainty, because as of today, DepEd is headed to a path of quandary and wilderness. And we could not easily follow, Mr. Speaker. Marami pong salamat sa ating mga kasamahan. Magandang hapon po, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Deputy Speaker Marcoleta to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is done. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable France L. Castro of Party List Act Teachers for her privileged speech. So move.
Is there any objection? The chair is done. The motion is approved. Representative Franz Castro, Party List Act Teacher Party List is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker. Magandang araw po, Ginoong Speaker, at saka po ako kinatawan. Sa darating na Marso 17, 2021, ang ika-1 taon ng proklamasyon ng 929 na pagdedeklara ng state of calamity sa buong bansa sa loob ng 6 na buwan o mahigit pa. Hanggang ngayon, nasa sitwasyon pa rin tayo ng iba't ibang klase ng community quarantine. Sarado pa rin ang mga paaralan, mataas ang inflation rate, bumubulusok pababa ang ekonomiya, malawak ang kawalan ng trabaho o hanap buhay, tumitindi ang krisis pangkalusugan at iba pang suliranin. Mag-iisang taon na pero ang mamamayan pa rin ang dehado sa pandemyang ito. Sa sektor ng edukasyon, Ginoong Speaker, unang quarter pa lang ng blended learning ay marami ng kinakaharap na problema ang mga paaralan, mga guro, estudyante at magulang. Nariyan ang kulang na mga module, walang access sa online learning at iba pang kagamitan para sa blended or distance learning. Naging mas mahirap pa ito sa kanila. At hanggang ngayon ay walang konkretong plano ang DepEd kung paano na naman itatawid ang papalapit ng school year. Walang sapat na pondo para sa pangailangan ng blended learning or distance learning at lalong walang budget para sa ligtas na pagbubukas ng mga paaralan para masiguro na ito ay ligtas sa mga susunod na at nasusunod ang mga minimum health standards. Sa usapin ekonomiya, nito lamang nakaraang Disyembre 2020, pumalo sa 3.5% ang inflation rate at sabay-sabay pang nagtaasan ang presyo ng bilihin, mga basic commodities, gulay at karne, ngunit nananatili pa ring mababa at hindi nakakaagapay ang sahod ng mga mamamayan. Bagsak ang ating ekonomiya, lalong-lalo na yung ating mga local markets at MSMEs. At sa tala, Ginoong Speaker, bumagsak ang ating GDP sa negative 9.5. Ang epekto nito ay laganap na kawalan ng trabaho o hanap buhay, bagsak na nga ang ating ekonomiya, malaki pang utang ng ating gobyerno na halos nagtototal ng $13.34 billion or 640.96 billion pesos para sa COVID-19 response. Ito po ay mula sa data ng DOF, December 15, 2020. Ngayon, 1 taon na ang pandemya, balak naman ng ating gobyerno na alisin ang restrictive policy sa ating mga konstitusyon at iba pa. Sa usapin ng kalusugan, sa kasalukuyan, halos 616,611 na ang total na kaso ng COVID-19. 56,679 dito ay active, 547,166 ang nakarecover at 12,766 ang namatay. Tayo ang may pinakamataas na kaso sa Asia at mayroon pang mga bagong COVID-19 variants na nagsusurputan. Dahil wala naman pong mass testing at maayos na contact tracing, hindi po tayo nakakasiguro na iyan talaga ang totoong bilang ng apektado ng COVID. Ayon sa datos ng DOH, as of March 12, mayroon na lamang 1,262 health facilities for COVID na mayroong 28,754 bed capacities, kung saan ang occupied ay nasa 10,181. at 18,573 naman ang bakante. Kulang-kulang pa ito sa 56,679 na active cases, kaya madalas ay naka-home quarantine na lang imbes na nasa ospital dahil kulang ang bed capacity at walang panggastos. Idagdag pa ang usapin ng bakuna na nagkaroon pa ng VIP vaccinations. Wala sa priority ang mga education frontliners at kulang na ang bakuna ay less efficient pa ang napili. At mukhang natigil na rin ang inoculation mula sa mga donations at iba. Kaya ang tanong, Ginoong Speaker ng Taong Bayan, asan na yung ating budget para dito sa bakuna? At asan na rin yung mga inutang para sa bakuna? Ayon sa press briefing ng Malacanang, we are excellent. Na-control po natin ang pagkalat ng sakit. Lalong-lalo na kung ikukumpara tayo sa mas mayayaman at mga bansa na mas marami at moderno ang ospital. Ngunit Ginoong Speaker, sa katotohanan, hindi naman na-flatten the curve at hindi naman na-control ang pandemya. Dahil palpak ang gobyerno, hindi ito agad sinolusyonan ang problema tulad ng malawakan testing, contact tracing, kulang sa isolation or COVID facilities, at ang healthcare system. At sa ngayon nga, Ginoong Speaker, among the Southeast Asian countries, tayo na lang yung tumataas na kaso ng COVID-19. Bawat araw ay may bagong nadadagdag na kaso, ang iba ay hindi pa naitatala. Kulang ang ayuda. Hindi ka nga mamamatay sa COVID, ikaw naman ay mamamatay sa kawalan ng hanap buhay at pagkain, ang sabi ng mamamayan. Hanggang ngayon, marami ang dropouts at out-of-school youth dahil hindi kayang sumabay sa blended or distance learning. Lilipas na ang taon, ngunit hindi pa rin tayo nakakabangon sa hagupit ng pandemya. Dahil hindi sapat ang COVID response, lalo na sa malawak na mamamayang hirap sa buhay at lalong naghihirap dahil sa pandemya. Kaya't ang panawagan, Ginoong Speaker, ng ating mga mamamayan, magbigay ng ayuda sa ating mga vulnerable sectors, sa ating mga magsasaka, manggagawa, at sa konkreto, Ginoong Speaker, ang aming panawagan, ibigay ang 10,000 pesos sa 22.5 million na pamilya o sa kabuuang 225 billion at 100 billion tulong sa ating mga MSMEs at hindi ito pautang. Maraming salamat, Mr. Speaker, at nawapoy sa mga susunod na panahon ay makita na natin yung tuloy-tuloy na pagbabakuna sa ating mga mamamayan at tuloy-tuloy na pag-aayuda sa ating mga mamamayan. Magandang hapon at maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the privileged speech of the Honorable Franz Castro of ACT Teachers Party List to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the gentleman from the Bayan Muna Party List, the Honorable Ferdinand Gaite, for his privileged speech. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Representative Ferdy Gaite of Bayan Muna Party List is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat, kagalang-galang na Speaker, at sa lahat ng ating kagalang-galang na mga pinatawan sa Kongreso at sa lahat ng ating mga panauhin at mga nakikinig sa pagpupulong na ito. Ako'y tumatayo on a matter of collective and personal privilege hinggil sa mga kaganapan sa nangyari nitong mga nakarang araw. Mr. Speaker, mga kapwa mambabatas at mga kababayan, mariing kinukundina ng kinatawang ito ang Department of the Interior and Local Government o DILG hinggil sa inilabas nitong memorandum noong March 12, 2021 na pinirmahan ni Assistant Secretary for Public Safety and Security Alexander Macario. Inaatasan ng memorandum na ito ang mga regional directors at BARM Secretary na ipasa ng mga ito ang pangalan ng mga miyembro ng Confederation for Unity, Recognition, and Advancement of Government Employees of Courage sa loob ng kagawaran at lantarang red tagging sa hanay ng Alliance of Concerned Teachers at Courage. Mr. Speaker, lubha kami nababahala sa memorandum na inilabas ng DILG dahil ito ay direktang maglalagay sa panganib at vulnerabilidad sa iligal na pag-aaresto sa mga kawani ng pamahalaan, katulad na lamang ng nangyari sa mga miyembro at organisador ng Courage na sina Bob Reyes, Donette Dizon, Oliver at Rowena Rosales. Nitong buwan, inaresto sa gawa-gawang kaso sina Ramir Corcolon na empleyado ng San Pablo Water District at kasalukuyang Pangulo ng kanilang unyon at gayon din miyembro ng Pambansang Konseho ng Courage. Gayon din si Eugene Eugenio na empleyado ng Antipolo City Government at Pangulo ng kanilang unyon. Kasama sila dito sa tinaguriang Bloody Sunday nitong nakaraang linggo. Pareho silang tiniman ng baril at sa paso ni Corcolon ay pampasabog din upang bigyang katuwiran ang iligal na pag-aresto sa kanila. Maaaring maging target ng Philippine National Police o PNP sa buwan ng Armed Forces of the Philippines o AFP sa kanilang mga operasyon ng surveillance, pananakot, iligal na pag-aresto at maging pagpatay ang mga kawani dahil sa kabang na ito ng DILG. Nakita natin ang mga resulta ng red tagging sa mga aktivista at kritikal sa administrasyon kaya lubha itong nakakaalarma. Hindi rin ito ang unang pagkakataon na nanghimasok ang isang ahensya ng gobyerno sa usapin ng organisasyon ng mga kawani sa pamahalaan. Nitong January 2021 lamang, pinanghimasukan ng NTF-ELCAC at National Intelligence Coordinating Agency kasabwat ang AFP at PNP ang unyon ng mga kawani sa Department of Social Welfare and Development, ang DSWD Social Workers Employees Association of the Philippines, isang unyon na miyembro ng Courage, ay sinikap nilang mag-disaffiliate sa Courage. Malinaw na paglabag sa probisyon ng batas na interference ng gobyerno sa right to self-organization and association. Tuloy-tuloy ang ginagawang mga pulong ng NTF-ELCAC sa mga kawani ng pamahalaan upang siraan ang Courage na dati ko pong pinamumunuan at iba pang progresibong organisasyon. Sa pinakamalala ay tinatakot ang mga opisyal at leader ng mga unyon. Malinaw na ang memorandum na ito ng DILG ay tuwirang lumalabag sa ating saligang batas, Mr. Speaker. Sa Article 3, Section 8 of the Philippine Constitution provides that the right of the people, including those employed in the public and private sectors, to form unions, associations, or societies for the purpose not contrary to the laws shall not be abridged. Gayon din sa Article 9, letter B, Section 2, number 5, the right to self-organization shall not be denied to government employees. Hindi din ito umaayon sa Article 5 ng International Labor Organization Convention number 151 na unang niligtaan noong 1978 pa. Pero ngayon lang inendorso na ni Pangulong Duterte nitong Mayo 2017 sa Senado at niratipikahan naman noong Agosto 2017. ILO 151 provides that 1. Public employees, organizations shall enjoy complete independence from public authorities. Public employees, organizations shall enjoy adequate protection against any acts of interference by a public authority in their establishment, functioning, or administration. Bago po ako magtuloy, hindi ko lang po alam kung na-flash na sa screen yung naturang memorandum ng DILG at kung hindi pa, kung maaari po i-facilitate ng ating Committee on Rules. Malinaw na unfair labor practice ito na mismo nakalagay rin sa Executive Order 180 na pinirmahan pa noong April 1987 patungkol sa public sector unionism, kasama na rin sa naturang implementing rules and regulations ng naturang Executive Order. Bakit hindi na lang pagtuunan ng pansin ng DILG ang pag-iimbestiga sa mga kasong na kinasasangkutan ng Philippine National Police na naging matunog nitong mga nagdaang linggo, katulad ng shootout sa pagitan ng PNP at PDEA, tanim ebidensya, modus ng PNP sa mga operasyon, pagpatay ng mga pulis kay Calbayog City Mayor Ronaldo Aquino, ang paglabag sa health protocol ni PNP Chief Debold Sinas, at maging ang nangyaring Bloody Sunday. Ito ang ma-issue na dapat tutukan ng Department of Interior Local Government. Imbes na unahin ng DILG ang red tagging na panghimasok sa mga unyon ng mga kawani ng pamahalaan na pinamumunuan ng courage at act. Tutukan na lamang nito ang pagresolba sa kakaharaping problema ng mga kawani at pamahalaan dulot ng pagpapatupad ng full revolution, bunga ng Mandanas ruling sa mga serbisyo at programa ng national government sa susunod na taon. Kung paano hindi mawawala ng trabaho ang mga kawani sa pamahalaan at maitaas ang kanilang mga sweldo at benepisyo. Kaya naman, Mr. Speaker, nananawagan kami na imbestigahan ang ginagawang panghimasok at red tagging ng DILG at maging ng ibang pang ahensya ng gobyerno sa mga unyon ng mga kawani ng pamahalaan. At kagyat na itigil ang ginagawang union busting at red tagging sa courage at iba pang progresibong organisasyon ng mamamayan. Itigil ang red tagging sa mga kawani ng pamahalaan, aktivismo, hindi terorismo, palayain ng courage. 5. Palayain sina Remerco Colon at Eugene Eugenio. Itigil ang atake sa mga kawani ng pamahalaan. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker, at sa ating lahat.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Gaite to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There any objection? The chair is done. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the Honorable Sarah Jane I. Elago of Party List Kabataan for her privileged speech. So move,
There any
Mr. Speaker.
objection? The chair is done. The motion is approved. Representative Sarah Jane Ilago, Party List Kabataan, is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker. Ang representasyon na ito ng kabataan ay tumitindig sa kapulungan ito ngayong buwan ng kababaihan upang higit pang maibahagi sa ating kapulungan ang agenda ng mga kabataan pagdating sa pantay na karapatan ng sambayan ng Pilipino, lalong-lalo na upang labanan ang kahit anong forma ng abuso, ng diskriminasyon, ng panunupil at pagtapak sa karapatan ng mga kababaihan. The advocacy on women's empowerment and gender equality is a part and parcel of our work as a youth representation. We do not want to inherit a future where there is more of the abuse, discrimination, exploitation, polarization we see, hear, and experience today. It is clear to us that there can be no inclusive prosperity and peace without equality and socioeconomic development and justice. Hence, this youth representation's agenda in Congress has focused thus far on education, employment, industrialization, agrarian reform and rural development, health and social services, good governance, the struggle for the rights to self-determination of our national minorities, climate action, and gender equality, all of which are a collective pursuit of young people, however diverse our backgrounds are. We unite in this agenda towards a more prosperous, just, and peaceful society. Hindi lang dapat sa buwan ng kababaihan pinag-uusapan ang kalagayan, ang sitwasyon ng mga kababaihan, lalong-lalo na ang mga nagmumula sa mga marginalisado na mga sektor. Higit na kinakailangan ang pagdadagdag ng ating boses, lalong-lalo na sa kalidad at sa abot kamay na edukasyon para sa lahat. Mr. Speaker, the quality and accessible education is a key to raising awareness, the promotion of critical thinking, development of empathy, respecting diversity, bridging gaps, and understanding perspectives. It is vital for the empowerment of the youth. It is essential for the promotion and protection of human rights for just societies. There's still so much more to be done in exercising the oversight and the implementation of laws with regard to the improvement of quality of education for all, to uphold academic freedom and support subjects, programs, and activities that advance human rights and peace building, or media and information literacy, among others. Napakaraming kailangang bantayan upang tiyakin na hindi lang sa papel ang ating tunguhin para bigyan ng espasyo ang lahat ng ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na ang mga hindi pa gaanong naririnig o kinakailangan pang idagdag ang ating boses para maaksyonan ang kanilang mga hinaing, ang kanilang mga issue, ang kanilang concern. Sa bahagi na ito ng mga kabataan, kinakailangan ang patuloy na paggigiit. We need continued assertion, engagement, and lobbying to get more support, solidarity, and action, not only from the members of Congress, but also from our fellow youth-serving organizations, agencies, and even international networks and formations. Especially now that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought an unprecedented crisis and further exposed major weaknesses in our governance system. COVID-19 is deepening pre-existing inequalities and has had a disproportionate impact on women. Compounded economic impacts are felt especially by women and girls who are generally earning less, saving less, and holding insecure jobs or living close to poverty. Hindi pa po dito kasama yung milyon-milyon na mga displaced workers na mayroong mga temporary work-from-home arrangements o kaya po hindi tumatanggap ng kanilang regular na kukuha na kada buwan. Mr. Speaker, unpaid care work has also increased with children out of school, with heightened care needs of the elderly, and our already overwhelmed health services. And now, with restricted movement and social isolation measures, gender-based violence is also increasing exponentially. There's economic instability that has contributed to household tensions and has triggered abusive behavior. Victim survivors are constrained from seeking help because of lockdown of shelters. Hindi po lahat ng mga temporary shelters ay nakapagbukas na o nakapaglagay na ng mga kinakailangan na minimum health protocols para lahat ng essential services para sa mga victim survivors, para sa kanilang kinakailangan na paghilom mula po sa pagiging biktima ng gender-based violence ay maibigay sa kanila. Kaugnay niyan, Ginoong Speaker, there's also very limited access to necessary care and support services. From clinical management of rape and mental health issues, medico-legal services, counseling, and delays in producing barangay protection orders. All these health services, Mr. Speaker, mostly needed by women and girls, are deprioritized, including access to maternal care and other reproductive healthcare services. Hindi po ito katanggap-tanggap. Sa panahon na mula po sa maternal mortality hanggang sa mga unmet needs ng mga mothers at ng mga kababaihan, ay lahat po yan tumataas. I would also say, Mr. Speaker, that the COVID-19 pandemic has also changed the way we engage with our constituency, especially in ensuring that the voices of women and girls are not only heard in these democratic spaces, but their issues, their aspirations, their demands are acted upon by our public officials. In all these spaces for dialogues, discussion, and debates, There must be adherence to minimum health standards. Extra precaution is needed to protect the people, also the communities we work with, especially whenever we had to go out for our constituency work, the distribution of relief goods, and similar on-the-ground initiatives. We have also renewed efforts to prioritize action to ensure the right to privacy, information, and data security as we combat online identity theft, online sexual abuse, and other cybercrimes. Nakita na po natin yan dito sa mga komite, mula sa welfare of children, sa women and gender equality, kung paano natin tinitiyak ang kaligtasan ng mga learners at lahat ng mga gumagamit ng internet online sa ating pagkuha hindi lamang ng mga pang-araw-araw na klase, kundi mula sa balita hanggang sa entertainment at sa komunikasyon sa ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na yung mga nagtatrabaho sa ibayong dagat. Ngunit sa lahat ng ito, Ginoong Speaker, isa rin sa hindi natin maitatanggi na kalagayan ngayon ng mga kababaihan ay kung ano ba yung nararanasan ng ating women parliamentarians. In 2016, Mr. Speaker, the Interparliamentary Union has reported that about 81.8% of survey participants have experienced some form of psychological violence. Among them, some 44% said they had received threats of death, rape, beatings, or abduction during their parliamentary terms, including threats to kidnap or kill their children. Hindi po ito naiiba sa nararanasan ng ating mga lingkod bayan ng mga kababaihan sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa. At dito na rin sa kapulungang ito dahil sa kanilang pagtindig para sa obligasyon at mandato na bigyan ng boses ang kanilang mga constituents. Kaya naman, Ginoong Speaker, kinakailangan mula doon sa mga demands sa tuloy-tuloy na ayuda, ang pagkakaroon ng transparency at accountability sa pagbabakuna, higit na kinakailangan na dinggin ang mga hakbang dito sa loob ng Kongreso na tutugon doon sa malawakan na kawalan ng trabaho, kasama ng underemployment, at kung paano natin tinitiyak na sa lahat ng ating pandemic response and recovery plan, mayroong boses ang mga kababaihan. We have also called on all our fellow public officials to ensure women's equal representation in all COVID-19 response planning and decision-making. We should apply a gender lens to the design of the economic stimulus packages and social assistance programs to achieve greater equality, opportunities, and social protection. And finally, Mr. Speaker, in order for us to truly prioritize these concerns of women and girls, there is also a need to change deeply ingrained patriarchal attitudes and practices that perpetuate gender stereotypes. Measures should include awareness raising and public educational campaigns addressing women and girls as well as men and boys, and also religious leaders with an aim to eliminate stereotypes associated with traditional gender roles in the family and in society. We reiterate the clarion call to advance women's representation for better representation. But having more women alone in public service is not enough to bring about change. We must address the systemic causes of misogyny, sexism, and all forms of gender bias and discrimination. May we always find ways to raise each other's voices and look after each other. Higit na kinakailangan na tiyakin na ang bawat isa ay may boses at ang boses na ito ay maririnig. We have to make each voice count for urgent and effective pandemic, human rights, and climate emergencies response. And through raising our voices amid the pandemic, human rights, and climate emergency, definitely, certainly, Mr. Speaker, we can build back better. Ngunit kinakailangan ang nasa puso ng plano ay palaging ang karapatang pantao at ang batayang kalayaan ng bawat isang Pilipino. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Representative Sarah Jane Elago to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we terminate the privilege hour. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker,
Leader.
I move that we consider House Bill number 8783 as contained in Committee Report 767, and may I request the Secretary General to read the title of the bill.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Secretary General is directed to read House Bill 8783. So move.
House Bill number 8783, an act strengthening the private security industry, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 5487, entitled An Act to Regulate the Organization and Operation of Private Detective, Watchmen, or Security Guard Agencies as amended.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the sponsor of the bill, the Honorable Michael Edgar Y. Aglipay of DIWA Party List, for his sponsorship speech.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. Representative Aglipay is hereby recognized.
Mr. Speaker, last week I already delivered my sponsorship speech. I am now ready to be interpellated, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Arlene Brosas of Gabriela Party List for her interpellation.
Representative Arlene Brosas is hereby recognized.
Move to suspend, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recall my previous motion and move instead that we recognize the Honorable Ferdinand R. Gaite of Bayan Muna Party List.
Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recall my previous motion and move instead that we recognize the Honorable Ferdinand R. Gaite of Party List Bayan Muna for his interpellation.
Representative Ferdinand Gaite, Party List Bayan Muna is hereby recognized.
Maraming salamat po kagalang-galang na Speaker sa ating magiting na binatawan ng Party List Diwa, si magiting na Congressman Mike Aglipay. Pahintulutan ba ng ang kinatawang ito na makapagtanong hinggil sa napapanahong panukalang batas para pangalagaan at protektahan ang ating mga security guards. Mr. Speaker, kagalang-galang na sponsor.
Opo, Mr. Speaker. Pwede na po kayo mag-interpellate.
Salamat po. Sa panukalang batas 8783 na ngayon ay consolidated na sa Committee Report number 767, may mga nakita akong mga positibong mga aspeto para yung ating mga security guard na nalalagay sa matinding panganib, lalo na ngayong pandemya. Sila pa rin yung maharap sa atin kapag pumasok tayo sa mga establishmento. Ngunit, alam naman rin natin yung malubhang kalagayan ng ating mga security guards. At posible na ina-address ngayon ang mga problema na bunga na nga rin ng dating batas na Republic Act 5487 ay kailangan na talagang ma-update. At natutuwang ito na may mga provision na dati wala at ngayon idadagdag, lalo na sa usapin ng karapatan at kagalingan ng ating mga security guards. Sa una pong katanungan, Mr. Speaker, batay na rin sa pakikipagpanayam sa mga iba't ibang opisina, lalo na yung mga security guard. Kung hindi nyo po tatanungin, mahilig ko kung makipagkwentuhan sa ating mga security guard. At inaalam yung kondisyon nila. Nung ako nagtatrabaho sa OWA, karamihan mga security guard ay kilala ko na. Nakukwento nila sa akin yung kanilang mga suliranin at kilala nila ako dahil sa aking involvement sa labor movement. Pero isang nababahala ko ay dun sa usapin ng bagamat ito ay bagong provision, ano? Yung sa usapin ng karapatan ng ating mga security personnel, lalo na sa usapin ng sahod, benepisyo, among others. Ang madalas na narinig kong problema ay yung napakaraming kinakaltas sa kanilang sahod. May kung ano-anong minsan nga daw nakalista nga lang daw sa palaran ng papel, palaran ng sigarilyo, yung kanilang payroll. And after so many deductions, wala na halos silang naiuwi. No? Maliban, of course, alam naman natin, may mandatory deductions, but merong ibang deductions na wala silang magawa dahil kinaltas ng agency, and therefore, they just accept this. Pero yan yung isa sa madalas kong naririnig na problema. Mr. Speaker, ano ho ba pinapanukala sa batas na ito hinggil sa proteksyon ng ating mga security guards sa usapin ng sahod? Mr. Speaker, kagalang-galang na sponsor.
Mr. Speaker, yung batas po na pinapalitan nito, na nire-repeal nito, yung 55487, ay ginawa po nung naging batas no 1972, almost 49 years ago. So itong batas po ngayon ay dati po nakasentro sa pag-regulate ng mga kumpanya, ng mga security agency, wala masyadong banggit sa mga manggagawa. Ito po ngayon ay kabaliktaran po, nakafocus po sa manggagawa. So, yung tanong nyo po kung ano yung mga assurance dito ng mga security guard, nasa section 19 po na nagsasabi doon na private security personnel shall be paid not less than the minimum wage or other benefits under the Labor Code of the Philippines. Ito po ay may kaagapay pa na isang provision na since yung mga ibang kumpanya na sila mismo ay sumasadya na bayaran na mababang rate ang mga security agency, ay tinatakda po na bigyan ng agency fee na 20% na na-enjoy na ngayon ng mga security agency pero hindi sinusunod pa rin minsan ng mga kumpanya para ito po ay magbigay alalay na masigurado na mabigay yung minimum wage sa mga guard. Once na ma-secure na po natin itong mga provision na to, ay mas malaking tsansa po na mababayaran yung gwardiya na nagjo-duty. For example po sa Metro Manila, kung ikaw ay gwardiya nagjo-duty na 12 hours sa isang araw, dapat almost 866 pesos a day ang sweldo mo if you follow the minimum wage. So sa tingin ko po, kaya naman ganyan ang kalagayan ngayon ng mga guard ay almost 2/3 ng mga security agency sa Pilipinas ay fly-by-night. Ibig sabihin, wala silang rehistro sa PNP SOSHA or expired. So ibig sabihin, mas may pagkakataon na dayain yung mga benepisyo ng guard dahil wala silang accountability sa gobyerno.
Salamat po doon sa pagpapaliwanag. May nabanggit po kayong administrative fee, yung 20%. Pwede ho nyo ba ipaliwanag? How will this benefit the security guards? Paano ho ba ito pinakaltas? Paano o dinadagdag? At paano na-assure yung ating mga security guards kahit yan sa ating House of Representatives, may mga security guards din tayo, no? Contracted out na agency. How does this how is this implemented, Mr. Speaker, sa ating kagalang-galang na sponsor?
Mr. Speaker, ito po ay kailangan dahil merong mga ibang security contracts na 1,000 lang o 2,000 ang agency fee. Ibig sabihin, dito po gagamitin sa pag-operate ng agency at paggastusin sa pag-supervise ng guard. Kukulangin po yon dahil 2,000 po ay kulang pa sa pag-maintain ng opisina. So itong 20% po ay ito po ay reasonable fee na dyan po kukunin yung mga gastusin na pag-manage ng agency para hindi na pinapakailaman yung sweldo ng gwardiya, which is most of the time yun po yung nangyayari ngayon na hindi po nasusunod yung nandun sa kontrata dahil yung mismong kliyente, yung contractor, nagtatakda ng masyadong mababang agency fee na ang ginagawa na lang nung security agency with the ay bawasan yung sweldo ng guard. So ito po ay ito pong provision na to ay ngayon ay na-enjoy naman ng mga agency dahil covered ng Department Order ng DOLE, yung DOLE Department Order 150-16. Pero Department Order lang po to. Meron mga kumpanya ayaw pa rin sundin dahil hindi daw batas. So naka-enclose na ho sa batas na to, which will be a big help na katuwang ng provision na Section 19 na ma-implement na yung guard natin mabayaran ng tama.
Salamat po, Mr. Speaker. At kaisa po ako doon sa pagbabago nga nitong panukalang batas, lalo nagsusapin na yung inclusion na ito nga, nabanggit na nga po, yung dating batas na ilang taon mo, 40 years ago pa pala yun, wala itong proviso na ito. Yung compensation and other benefits for private security personnel na nilalaman ang usapin ng basic wage rate, rights of security guards, na dati wala ata, kung ako nagkakamali, no? Wala dun sa original na batas. Kaya ito ay pag-usad sa proteksyon ng kanilang mga karapatan. Pero matanong ko po, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, sa ating galing na sponsor, batay sa batas, at hindi ko alam bakit applicable lang ito sa ating mga security guards. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yung sinasabing bonds, no? Na currently, yung ating security guards ay may dinideduct pa sa kanilang sweldo na nagsisilbing bond. At ang pagkaunawa ko, again, correct me if I'm wrong, ito yung pag-secure na kapag huwag naman sana may mga bagay na nawala doon sa kanyang mga assets o properties na nawala doon sa kanyang pinagtatrabahuhan, ay ang kawawang security guard ay babawasan mula doon sa bonds na kanyang binayaran. Kung hindi naman daw mawala, ay babalik naman sa kanya yung bond. Pero correct na lang po kung mali ba yun o tama. Applicable lang po ba ito sa ating mga security guards na yung requirement of the deduction to form a bond which shall be a security for certain losses, damage to the property and assets of the facility which is yung kanyang pinagtatrabahuan. Correct? Tama ho ba yan? Applicable ho ba ito sa mga security guard, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, Mr. Sponsor?
Mr. Speaker, ang alam ko po dyan, yung sinasabi niyong bond na dinideduct yung mga nawawalang bagay o nasirang bagay ng habang ng duty guard ay bawal po yan sa DOLE. Illegal deduction po yan at hindi pinapayagan po. Pero hindi yan kasama dito sa batas na to. Yan ay already sa normal course of business, kahit hindi lang naman sa security guard, kahit janitor ka, o kahit bus driver ka, bawal po yan didakan ng tinatawag nilang surety bond.
Salamat po sa clarification na yon. Tama po kayo, no? Ang sabi nga po, dapat walang diminution, ano? Pagkaliit ng kanilang sahod o benepisyo. At dapat
Volume. Walang volume.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend.
Session suspended.
tulad na nabanggit ko, bagamat sinabi niyo bawal, apparently, ito ay pinapahintulutan. At ayon sa mga nilabas ng Department of Labor na guidelines, liban dito sa nabanggit ko, no? Union dues, yung insurance pala with the consent of the employer, tapos inauthorized by law, doon lamang pwedeng ibawas. Pero itong usapin ng bond as a practice, ito ba'y malinaw na ipagbabawal rin natin sa pinapanukalang batas ng ating kagalang-galang na sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, pakiulit po yung tanong kasi naputol po kayo ng Zoom.
Pasensya po. Ipagbabawal po ba yung nabanggit nyo? Clear ba na yung paniningil ng ban ay ipagbabawal na rin dito sa pinapanukalan yung batas? Dahil tulad na nabanggit ko kanina, merong...
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Speaker, naintindihan ko na yung tanong nyo. Yan po ay hindi na sakop nitong batas na to dahil yan po ay sa general practices sa Labor Code at saka sa IRR ng Department of Labor, ay bawal po talaga yan, hindi lang para sa security guard, lahat ng industriya. Pero dito po sa batas natin, sa Section 14, at dito po sa suspension of license na parusa sa mga security agency na mga tiwalina, dito po ay kasama yan. Underpayment or maltreatment of its employees or violation of the labor code as decided with finality by a court or quasi-judicial body. So, ibig sabihin dito, kung yung mga empleyado nakakuha ng victory siguro sa NLRC na mga illegal deduction na tipong masyado ng madaming minantrato ng mga empleyado, ay pwede silang pumitisyon sa PNP SOSYA ng suspension of license to operate. Malaking dagok na to sa isang security agency dahil ibig sabihin yung buong operasyon nila ay masususpinde dahil lang sa ito nga po, violation of labor code.
Salamat po, Mr. Speaker. Salamat po sa sponsor. Again, medyo mas ninanais ng kinatawang ito na explicit rin sana sa batas na ito. Ang mahalagang usapin na yan dahil apparently, tulad na nabanggit, dito sa article na binabasa ko, no? I-quote ko na lang. The law reminds employers not to make any deductions from the wages of the employee except in the following cases. 1, in requiring such a cash fund. However, a private security agency must first strictly observe rules and standards to ensure its validity and due regard to social protection and welfare of an employee. So sabi lang dito, must ensure dapat yung following. A, the employee concerned is clearly shown to have been responsible for the loss or damage. B, the employee is given reasonable opportunity to show cause why deduction should not be made. C, the amount of such deduction is fair and reasonable and shall not exceed actual loss of damage. And D, the deduction from the wages of the employee does not exceed 20% of the employee's wages in a week. Ito po yung article na nilabas ng Cordillera Department of Labor and Employment dated 2018 at ang sumulat po ay si Patrick Villota na essentially sinasabi pinahihintulutan yung practice na ito at merong mga kondisyon in which yung sinasabing iaawas in case meron ng tinatawag na loss. So I think this is important na kasama ito sa ating panukalang batas dahil ito'y particular sa security guard lang. Yung kaya ito yung tanong ko kanina kung ito ba ay exclusively for security guards only. I am not fully aware, no? It is also applicable to other employees, no? For that matter. Kaya po nagtatanungin ng tinatawag ito. So, I think this is germane to this bill. And kung gusto talaga natin, sinabi natin, gusto nating protektahan yung ating mga manggagawa, lalo na sa ganyang sitwasyon, lalo na yung security guards na ito ang madalas na kanilang kinakaharap. Napakaliit na nga. Sabi niyo po kanina, minimum wage plus probably 20%. Ano lang yon, ano? Napakaliit. Tapos minsan yung shifting nila sa hours, sabi sa batas 8 hours, pero kahit sa mga ibang establishmento, alam ko maabot sila ng 12 hours, no? Dahil nga doon sa mga iba't ibang usapin. So, Mr. Speaker, hindi mo ba dapat sana maisama rin natin na maprotektahan yung ating mga security guards na tulad na nabanggit, hindi ko alam kung peculiar ito o particular sa ating mga security guards yung sa pinaban at ganito nga yung kondisyon. Binabawas sa kanila ang mga losses or damage ng properties na kanilang binabantayan. Hindi ho ba sana ito ay included para rin babigyan ng karagdagang proteksyon ang ating mga security guard, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Mr. Speaker, sa kasalukuyang sistema na yung Department of Labor po through the local offices at yung mga NLRC po ay nagre-render judgment kaagad dito sa mga reklamo ng mga guard. Masyado na pong specific yung hinihingi nyo na ito pong batas natin ay magkakaroon naman ng IRR. At pangalawa, yung DOLE po, through ilang beses na ho yan naglabas ng memo, siguro the last 10 years, na bawal talaga yan. Ngayon, syempre, it's up to the guard kung saan siya magrereklamo sa local, tinatawag natin local office ng DOLE na sa aking pagkaalam, within siguro mga 2 to 3 weeks, nagbibigay na ng desisyon na yun ay ibabalik nung DOLE sa security agency na bawal yung dinedak niya. So hindi na po kailangan nilagay yan dito dahil ito po, nilalagay na nga dito, like what I mentioned, dito po sa Section 14, letter B, number 3, underpayment or maltreatment of its employees or violation of the labor code by decided in finality by a quasi-judicial body of competent jurisdiction. So nakita naman natin na yung NLRC is a quasi-judicial body under the administrative supervision ng DOLE. So itong mga desisyon na to, ito po ay malaking punishment, suspension of a license to operate. Dahil po napakahirap kumuha ng license ng isang security agency. Pag isususpend mo yan ng 6 na buwan, para mo na rin siyang tinigil, para mo na rin siyang tinanggalan ng lisensya. So, I think properly covered na yan. Kaya lang po yan nagiging ganyan karampant, yung minention ko kanina, doon sa around 4,000 na security agencies, 1,300 lang ang may active unexpired license na legally operating, doon tayo nagkakaproblema. Ito pong batas na to ay mostly makakatulong sa ating manggagawa dahil nakafocus po, kung basahin nyo, unlike yung dati po, nakafocus sa kumpanya, sa security agency, halos kalahati ho dito tungkol sa ating mga gwardiya. So enough na po to, yung binabanggit nyo po ay pang masyado ng specific na yung IRR na lang po papasok, Mr. Speaker.
Salamat po. Pasensya na, medyo napuputol yung audio. Salamat po dun sa inyong clarification. Nevertheless, ayoko ko nang i-belabor yung point. Pero yung nga po, no, nag-aalala ang kinatawang ito. Lalo na dun sa Department Order 195, Series of 2018 na inisyo ni galang-galang na kalihim ng Department of Labor, si Secretary Silvestre Bello, na sinasabi, bagamat sinasabi nyo ito yung bawal, nakalagay pa sa kanilang advisory na in the event that a private security agency requires a cash deposit from its employees, meron pang maximum amount that shall not exceed the employee's 1-month basic salary. So, despite yung na tingin nyo na dapat ito'y bawal, ito ay nagiging mismo yung Department of Labor ay tila hinahintulutan. Kaya po, ako tingin ko po ay napakahalaga nito para sa ating mga security guard. Nabanggit nyo po, totoo, merong mga proviso ang ating panukalang batas hinggil sa mga penalties. Pero dapat po klaro ano yung ipe-penalize. Kasi kung hindi po ipe-penalize yung nabanggit yung pagbabawal sa ganitong uri ng deductions at sa bonds, kung ibibigay na lang natin sa mga ahensya, tulad ng NLRC, baka magkaroon ng napakaraking discretion. I think we should be more specific or explicit when we define what violations have been made by these companies para maprotektahan yung ating mga security guard, no? Na alam naman natin, nabanggit ko na, no? Sigurado naalala natin yung insidente sa ano, no? Sa
Green Hills.
Sa Green Hills, no? Na bunga ng mga usapin, yung kanyang mga reklamo tungkol sa kanyang supposed abusadong mga supervisor, among others, ay nalagay siya sa ganung sitwasyon, ano? Ng hostage at nagkaroon pa ng napakalaking usapin, lalo na sa panahon ng ganitong kailangan ng seguridad. So, Mr. Speaker, siguro sa pagkakataong makapagmungkahi ng mga amendments sa panukalang batas, ay sana po ay dinggin ang mga imumungkahing mga amenda para sa konsiderasyon ng ating komite at sa ating kagalang-galang na sponsor. Kung pahintulutan ng ating kagalang-galang na sponsor, Mr. Speaker. So yun lang po. Maraming salamat at sa magandang hapon.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 8783.
Any objection? The chair is the motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider on third and final reading House Bill number 8928. And may I request the Secretary General to read the title of the bill and thereafter call the roll of members for nominal voting.
Is there any objection? The chair is done. The motion is approved. Secretary General directed to read House Bill 8928 and conduct nominal voting.
House Bill number 8928, an act establishing the Philippine Energy Research and Policy Institute, defining its objectives, powers, and functions, and providing funds therefor. Roll call of members. In consideration of third reading, House Bill number 8928, Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adjong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez France, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagaching, Balindong, Bañas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Pascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro France, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Maria Larni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizalde, Coanco, Colyantes, Crisologo, Cua, Cuaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dago, Dalipe, Dalog, Dasa, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, V. Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Puentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Goed, Gomark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Alosos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Elisa, Co Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Leachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malanyaon, Waminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uwano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Pajernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Sabeliano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Suansing Estrelita, Suansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, Si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, Tialan, Tijego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Biolago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate, and Subiri. Second call of members for consideration and third reading of House Bill Number 8928. Abante, Abaya, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Atienza, Aumentado, Bagaching, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Bernos, Biron, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Kuangco, Dalipe, Daza, De Jesus, Defensor Michael, Duavit, Duhali, Di Faustino Ino, Ermita Buhain, Estrella, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Fortun, Garbin, Garin Sharon, Gonzaga, Gico, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Haloshos, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Lagon, Liachon, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nunez Malanion, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Pajernos, Pichay, Pineda, Rivera, Romero, Sagarbarria, Salceda, Sanchez, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tanalaisa, Tanajelina, Tanshamir, Tanshari, Tansherney, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Torres Gomez, Tialan, Uy Juliet Veloso, Villanueva Eduardo, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Yu, and Zubiri.
With 208 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, 0 abstention, House Bill 8928 is approved. Third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill 8737 and direct the Secretary General to read the title of the said measure and thereafter call the roll for nominal voting. So moved.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. Motion is approved. The Secretary General is hereby directed to read House Bill 8737 and thereafter conduct nominal voting.
House Bill Number 8737, an act regulating the conduct of off-campus educational activities by public and private schools. Roll call of members. In consideration of third reading, House Bill Number 8737, Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adjong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagaching, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Pascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biasol, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondoc, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castello, Castro Franz, Castro Fredinil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Mariela Arni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizalde, Coanco, Colliantes, Crisologo, Cuwa, Cuaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Dasa, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Di Maporo Abdullah, Di Maporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortuno, Frasco, Puentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Goed, Gomart, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Kong Hun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kay Chong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Maunda Dato, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Nagaño, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Núñez Malanyaon, Waminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Pajernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Sabellano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tana Laisa, Tana Jelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Shirley, Tijada, Teves Arnulfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, Tialan, Tijego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valyamor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villarasta Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Sarate, and Subiri. Second call of members for consideration on third reading, House Bill Number 8737. Abante, Abaya, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Aumentado, Bagaching, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Bernos, Biron, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Coangco, Dalipe, Daza, De Jesus, Defensor Michael, Duavit, Duhali, Di Faustino Ino, Ermita Buhain, Estrella, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Fortun, Garbin, Garin Sharon, Gonzaga, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Halosos, Wilton, Konghun, Lagon, Liachon, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Núñez Malanyaon, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Pajernos, Pichay, Pineda, Rivera, Romero, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Sanchez, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tana Laisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Shamir, Tan Shari, Tan Shirley, Tijada, Teves Arnulfo, Teves Jose, Torres Gomez, Tialan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villanueva Eduardo, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Yu, and Subiri.
With 202 members voting in the affirmative, 6 in the negative, 0 abstention, House Bill 8737 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration and third reading of House Bill 8829.
Majority Leader, we recognize Honorable Sarah Jane Ilago of Kabataan Party List for her explanation.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker. Sa pagtamasa ng kalidad at abot kamay na edukasyon para sa lahat, pangunahing dapat tiyakin ang kapakanan ng mga estudyante, lalo na ng mga bata, habang tinataguyod ang pagsasakatuparan ng mga karapatang pantao at batayang kalayaan sa loob at labas ng eskwelahan. Ngunit sa pagtitiyak ng kaligtasan at kapakanan ng mga estudyante, iba pang school stakeholders at mismong mga paaralan bilang institusyon, hindi dapat masangkalan ang kanilang mga demokratiko at akademikong kalayaan. Layunin ng House Bill No. 8737 na magtakda ng framework para sa mga off-campus educational activities, ngunit imbes na maging balangkas at gabay para sa makabuluhang learning experience, ipasa sa ilalim nito ang lahat ng mga off-campus non-curricular, co-curricular at extracurricular activities ng mga educational institutions, pampubliko at pampribado sa lahat ng antas sa kontrol at panghihimasok ng gobyerno. Walang pag-iiba o hindi malinaw ang distinction sa nature ng basic at higher education. Lahat ng mga aktibidad off-campus ng mga estudyante mula preschool hanggang postgraduate studies at kaakibat ng mga venues at destinations ay kailangan dumaan muna sa accreditation ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno. Ito ay malaking banta sa academic freedom ng mga institutions of higher learning at kaakibat na institutional autonomy sa pamahala ng mga pamantasan at kolehiyo. Walang naging boses ang mga primaryang stakeholders ng tertiary education dito dahil hindi rin ito dumaan sa deliberasyon sa House Committee on Higher and Technical Education. Imbes na state accreditation, imbes na dagdag kondisyon at restriksyon, ang kailangan nating palakasin ay ang promosyon ng mga off-campus educational activities sa pamamagitan ng empowerment ng mga education stakeholders mula sa mga skills training, human rights education, sa capacity building, sa pakikipagtulungan sa iba't ibang mga lugar o espasyo kung saan nila ilulunsad ang kanilang mga off-campus educational activities. Mr. Speaker, this would also help our education system pursue and realize the constitutional imperative to encourage non-formal, informal, and indigenous learning systems, as well as self-learning, independent, and out-of-school study programs, particularly those that respond to community needs. Ginoong Speaker, nililimitahan rin ang mga tipo ng aktibidad at kung saan ito ilulunsad dahil itatakda ng CHED at DepEd na hindi ito pwedeng malunsad o may mga activities na hindi pwedeng malunsad kung hindi ito accredited. Ginagawang krimen o may mga kaakibat na penalties ang paglulunsad ng mga off-campus activities na hindi nakakuha ng accreditation. Kaugnay ng pagbibuild ng climate of trust at culture of empowerment, kinakailangang irespeto at higit pa na i-empower ang mga estudyante na kalakhan ay mga bata at kabataan sa kanilang napakahalagang papel sa lipunang pagbabago. Nitong 2020 lamang, nakita natin na sa ilalim ng napakalalang krisis at mga sakuna, napakaraming mga off-campus activities na mga non-curricular, extracurricular ang sinagawa ng mga education stakeholders sa forma ng COVID-19 pandemic response, relief efforts, environmental advocacy, mga climate strike, gender equality at LGBTQI+ rights movements, community learning schools, mga co-learning spaces para sa mga nagsastruggle sa modular learning, immersion program at marami pang iba. Ang paglimita ng mga aktibidad ng kabataan sa labas ng 4 na sulok ng paaralan o ng classroom ay curtailment ng kanilang mga demokratikong karapatan at pagkitil sa kalayaang pang-akademiko. State authority and tightened regulation through accreditation system could seriously hamper academic freedom, compromise institutional autonomy on the matter of higher education institutions' governance, and the exercise of civil and political rights of students and all other educational stakeholders. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker. Dahil po sa mga rason na ito, ang representasyon na ito ng kabataan ay bumoboto ng no sa House Bill number 8737. Maraming salamat.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration on third reading of House Bill 8829 and direct the Secretary General to read the title of the said measure and thereafter call the roll for nominal voting.
There is an objection. The chair is done. The motion is approved. Secretary General is directed to read House Bill 8829 and thereafter conduct nominal voting.
House Bill number 8829, an act protecting the physical integrity of a cultural property from adverse visual impact and penalizing any obstruction to its view and sightline, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 10066, otherwise known as the National Cultural Heritage Act of 2009. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill number 8829 on third reading. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Omentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Rosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabuchan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Coangco, Corrientes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culiamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Co Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Gorizeta, Gico, Gulias, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Eliza, Co Wilton, Kunghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liatchon, Legarda, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles, Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Uwaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uwano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbor, Daza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, sa Garbaria, sa Kaluran, Salceda, sa Limbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Angcopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sensuat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate, Zubiri. Second call for consideration on third reading of House Bill Number 8829. Abante, Abaya, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Aumentado, Bagatsing, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Bernos, Biron, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizaldi, Ko Wangko, Dalipe, Daza, De Jesus, Defensor Michael, Duavit, Duhali, D. Faustino Ino, Ermita Buhain, Estrella, Fariñas, Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Flores, Fortun, Garbin, Garin Sharon, Gonzaga, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Haloshos, Co Wilton, Kunghun, Lagon, Liacion, Marino, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Jericho, Nograles 1, Nunez Malaniaon, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Padiernos, Pichay, Pineda, Rivera, Romero, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Sanchez, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villanueva Eduardo, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, U. Zubiri.
With 210 members voting the affirmative, 0 in the negative, 0 abstention, House Bill 8829 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider on third reading House Bill 8835 and thereafter direct the Secretary General to read the title of that said measure and call the roll for nominal voting. So moved.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Secretary General is directed to read House Bill 8835 and thereafter conduct nominal voting.
House Bill Number 8835, an act regulating the practice of microbiology in the Philippines and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members. In consideration of third reading, House Bill Number 8835. Abante, Abaya, Villanosa, Abu Exaldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Costa Alba, Adjong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez France, Alvarez Senaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Matong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagaching, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bulilla, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabutsan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro France, Castro Fredinil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Maria Larni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalaw, Co Angelica, Co Elizalde, Coanco, Colyantes, Crisologo, Cua, Cuaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Los De Los Montalia, Di Maporo Abdullah, Di Maporo Khalid, Duavit Duhali Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian Ebka Secleo, Elago Enverga, Erice Ergel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Green Janet, Green Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Griseta, Gico, Gulias, Guya, Aresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Alosos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacsonuel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Leachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal-Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadato, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles 1, Nolasco, Nunez Malanyaon, Uwaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Roni, Ordanes, Ortega, Uwano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Pajernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radasa, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulog, Sabillano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuat, Sionsing, Israelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Saleta, Suarez David, Suntaisi Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tanalaysa, Tanangelina, Tansamir, Tanshari, Tanshirni, Tihada, Teves Arnulfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, Tialan, Tijego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Bari Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Balmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva, Eduardo, Villanueva, Noel, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora, Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate, and Subiri. Second call of members for consideration on third reading, House Bill number 8835. Abante, Abaya, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Aumentado, Bagatsing, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Bernos, Biron, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kanama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Ko Hangko, Daza, De Jesus, Defensor Michael, Duavit, Duhali, Di Faustino Ino, Ermita Buhain, Estrella, Fariñas, Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando Flores, Fortun, Garbin, Garin Sharon, Gonzaga, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Aloshos, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Lagon, Leachon, Mariño, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Jericho, Nograles 1, Nunez Malanyaon, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Pajernos Pichay, Pineda, Rivera, Romero, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Sanchez, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tanalaysa, Tanangelina, Tanshamir, Tanshari, Tanshirni, Tihada, Teves Arnulfo, Teves Jose, Torres Gomez, Tialan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villanueva, Eduardo, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, UN, Subiri.
With 210 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, 0 abstention, House Bill 8835 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we approve on third reading House Bill 8870 and direct the Secretary General to read the title of the said measure and thereafter call the roll for nominal voting. So move.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Secretary General is directed to read House Bill 8870 and thereafter conduct nominal voting.
House Bill number 8870, an act prohibiting game fixing and providing penalties for violations thereof. Roll call of members in consideration on third reading of House Bill number 8870. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredinil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Maria Laarni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Coanco, Coliantes, Crisologo, Cua, Quaresma, Cueva, Culyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavi, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael, D. Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Guico, Gulias, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Halosos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Eliza, Co Wilton, Kunghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangunadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Uaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarboria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate, Zubiri. Second call, in consideration on third reading of House Bill Number 8870. Abante, Abaya, Acosta, Agaraw, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Arenas, Aumentado, Bagatsing, Banyas Nograles, Baronda, Bernos, Biron, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Coanco, Daza, De Jesus, Defensor Michael Duavit Duhali, D. Faustino Ino, Ermita Buhain Estrella, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez Fernando, Flores Fortun, Garbin, Garin Sharon, Gonzaga, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Haloshos, Co Wilton, Konghun, Lagon, Liachon, Marinho, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nunez Malaniaon, Ordanes, Pacquiao Alberto, Padiernos, Pichay, Pineda, Rivera, Romero, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Sanchez, Silverio, Singson, Suarez Aleta, C. Alvarado, Talyado, Tan Alaisa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherni, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villanueva Eduardo, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, U. Zubiri.
With 211 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, 0 abstention, House Bill 8870 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that all bills approved on third and final reading be transmitted to the Senate for their immediate action. So moved.
There an objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the majority, it is our honor to nominate and elect as Assistant Majority Leader the Honorable Jesus Bong C. Suntay. So moved, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. Congratulations, my good friend Bong Suntay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the rules governing inquiries in aid of legislation, I move that we refer House Resolution number 1313 to the Committee on Welfare of Children.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of the House Bill number 4466 and Senate Bill number 1513, integrating labor education into the social science subjects in the higher education curriculum. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with our rules, I move that we ratify the said Bicameral Conference Committee report.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 8261 and Senate Bill number 1563, lowering the minimum height requirement for applicants of the Philippine National Police, Bureau of Fire Protection, Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, and Bureau of Corrections. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with our rules, I move that we ratify the said Bicameral Conference Committee report.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend session until tomorrow, March 16 at 3 p.m. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Session suspended until 3 p.m. March 16. 16. March 16.
Ay, baba na po. After.
Sorry, nagpe-preside ako. Tapos na, tapos.
Ayan, di ba? Kunyari, tingin-tingin sa taas. Ay, shit. May mic pa siya. Picture.
Ako muna.